Hi, everybody. This is Darrin with New England Basecamp. Our guest today is Erik Andersson Sundén. He is a game designer who lives in Uppsala, Sweden. On the side, he actually is trying to solve the world's energy crisis, but we're going to talk to him today specifically about game designing. We'll start off with Erik. I'll let you do a little introduction and tell us a little bit about your games.
Okay. Hi all, my name is Erik Andersson Sundén, as Darrin just said. I've been designing games for say 5-10 years or so. Actually, I've been designing games my entire life, but I started to do it a bit more seriously the past 5-10 years ago. I oh my, where do I start with this? I have been designing big and small games for a long time, and I just gotten in contact with a publisher that wants to design to publish one of my games. It's called Alderac Entertainment Group, and the publisher, and they will release my game Whirling Witchcraft. It's still the name we think we will use, but it's not entirely sure. It's a bit of a debate about the name right now, actually. It's a small game that takes about 10-15 minutes to play. And it was conceived, the idea of it, 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, I entered the game design competition. I tweaked the game for, say, 6 months or so. And then I entered that game design competition and won, and was really happy about that. And decided to pitch this to publishers after that. And that took me about half a year to get in contact with publishers. I attended one of the world's biggest game conventions in Germany. It's called Spiel in Essen. And so I met about 30 different publishers. I researched every one of them and thought if they could be interested in this. I found out which games they've done and what they have, if they could be interested in my game. And yes, if they were so, I reached out to them. And I got about 25 meetings, 25-30 meetings. I attended those in 2 days. So I was a bit exhausted afterwards. And by the end of the year, this means from these meetings were in October, and by this December, a few contracts started to come in. This means that we're now 1.5 years after that I first had the idea of the game. And then in February this year, I signed a contract, and we are now developing the game further. And actually yesterday, we played the game for the first time in a long time with the owner of the publishing company, and he was pleased with the development. So I think we're almost there now. Very pleased about that, and really happy that we're reaching there. Hopefully the game will be sent to the prints by the end of the year, and then by October next year, the game will reach retail. So it's a long process to go
from the time you made your presented it at Spiel until that it's going to be actually in print and in the stores or online or at the gaming conventions is really a 3-year process.
It's a 2-year. I mean, I presented it 2019 in October, okay. And now it's 2020, and we will send it to the printers by the end of this year-ish, and then say half a year's wait after that to get it up and running. And of course, these dates should be taken with a grain of salt here, given the times that we have right now with COVID-19 and such, because everything can be delayed as we have experienced. But that's the general plan, at least.
With that being said, is there a time when games typically come out? Like, do they say, all right, October is a great time where we're going to release a ton of games because for the Christmas market, or we're going to do summer, or is it pretty much equally throughout the year? From your experience,
I'm not that experienced in the marketing side. I should maybe start with saying, but still, my feeling is that the big releases for say, if you take it aside, if we do some sort of separation of games that you can find in a toy store, at least here in most parts of Europe, and the hobby games try to be often are aiming for Gen Con in the States, or Spiel
Okay.
in Germany. That is, I would say, where most games are released. However, I wouldn't. I mean, I guess some will also go for Christmas. That wouldn't. I mean, that's a big sell in general. But I know for sure that when my games were told when it should be released, it was either at Gen Con 2021 or at Spiel 2021. So that will. I don't know when Gen Con is. Do you know? It's something like July, I think, or mid-year.
I was gonna say in my head it's in August, but that doesn't
So
mean
maybe it's
right.
August. Yeah. So I'm not that
It's
familiar
not
with Gen.
happening this year, so we know that.
That we know.
So
Yes. Yes. And Spiel is in October. So, and
so it's a
yes.
quick game. How does the play? What happens in the game? How do you play it?
Okay. Yeah. So it's a very quick game. All players are doing things simultaneously, so you're not waiting for your turn. And I think that one of the big reasons why it has gotten some popularity here. So you're never waiting for your turn to do something. You're always doing the same thing as all the other players are doing. You are a witch, and you are sitting in a circle around the table. So you are trying to make the player to your right to lose. That's your nemesis in my game. Then. So if that player gets too much magic ingredients on their workbench, they lose the game. And the game is focused on transforming ingredients into more ingredients by the use of recipes. So you play recipes from your hand, you make new ingredients, and then you pass them to the right. So the ingredients are both the resource, but it's also, I mean, that you will use to end the game by overflowing the right neighbor. However, it's also it's the fuel for that, but it's also what kills you in the end. So you want enough of it, but you don't want too much of it. So and that builds some tension in the game. These recipes have different colors, and you can do different things with it. And maybe it's hard to explain without showing the entire game. But it's also so the ingredients will flow, because I will take ingredients from the player to the left and I will send it to the right, and then the recipes will flow in the other directions. I will pick one card, and then the recipes will go in the other direction. So it's a constant flow of things going on. It's not the real-time game, but it's a simultaneous game.
Oh, that's interesting from a definition aspect of it.
So maybe should I clarify what I mean? It could be. Okay, so
yeah, please.
So, yeah, simultaneous, I mean, there is no rush. So we have 7 phases. So everyone is doing phase 1 simultaneously without waiting. And then you say, okay, are everyone done with phase 1? Okay, let's move to phase 2.
Got it.
And everyone does that without a rush.
So it's almost wow. So it is turn-based in theory because of the level design and all that kind of stuff. Even though it's not like it's gonna be Erik's turn and then it's Darrin's turn. Like phase 1 turn, and then it's real time. I like to see that. Interesting.
Okay. Whereas real time then would be real time would be where you are stressing things. I mean, you want to do something as fast as possible. One publisher that made a really nice game. Here comes the first game. Not recommendation because I haven't played it, but it looks really interesting. Is Kitchen Rush. You are in a kitchen trying to cook meals for the guests at the restaurants, and you're constantly on time. Everyone is collaborating, and you're trying to make all these recipes of this kitchen to work and flow. And you have these hourglasses that you put on the table, and you're not allowed to use them, and then you pick it up. So but then it's a constant flow, and it's a stress moment. Whereas in my game, it's not.
Gotcha. So does your game allow the So what's the age appropriateness for the game from the design aspect of it?
Yes. Okay. So one of the things that made me realize that I actually had a good thing here was that my family actually liked to play the game. I've been designing game for a long time, and my family is like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's play a real game. That's the way they play it. Whereas when I presented this one the first time, it's like, yeah, let's play this one more time. And I was like, wait, what? You want to play it again? So I knew I was onto something. And then my daughter then, she was 6 then, and she sort of grasped the full game that was back then. It has gotten a bit more complex since, but then again, she has grown 2 years since, so she's still grasping it. It should be said, of course, that I've been playing games for her for a long time, and different children have different abilities. But my daughter, her name is Mi, she definitely grasps it. And I guess if you are playing games with your children, yeah, I guess they will be able to play Whirling Witchcraft as well. But I'm not sure if I'm not sure what the age limit will say on the box right now. That is still, if it's 10 years or 12 years, it could be that it will say that. But I played it with my 8-year-old daughter for long.
Do you, well, and those ages are definitely mainly a recommendation aspect of it. Is what I've played games that are recommended for 10 years and above that I still don't understand the concept of how to play it. So I mean, there's sometimes you go in the opposite direction as well. Do you play not vindictively? I mean, you are obviously playing against everybody, and so are you trying to make it more difficult for the other players at the same time while making it? I mean, from that aspect of it, or are you really looking out for yourself throughout the whole game?
You mean in my game, what you want to do?
Yeah. Yeah. So because you talk about passing stuff over, and you get too much, it turns into bad for the player as well. So I mean, if you see the cards and what you're passing over, so like I could pass you all. Let's say red is bad, potions are bad. Pass all the red. You're to the left of me. If I pass all the red potions over to you, potentially it could be fatal for you from that aspect.
So the base premise is if you have too many of one ingredients, you lose the game. So you have 5 different types of ingredients, and all of them, if you get over a certain cap, a threshold, you will lose the game. So all ingredients are potentially dangerous. However, since your recipes that you have chosen throughout the game are able to take some of the ingredients, some of them you really want to be able to push it to your right neighbor, whereas others that you aren't able to handle will be those that are dangerous to you. So you will constantly be looking for the recipes that could help you, but also the ones that could be attacking to the right. So it's a constant small battle that takes about 10-15 minutes. So you play like 6 rounds of this, or that's what we're aiming for, a 6-round game where you pick a recipe, you use the ingredients and pass it on to the right, and pass the cards to the left, and then you do another round, something like that. So, but yes, the only way you can influence your right player is by sending them cards. There are no attack cards or anything like that. You only send them the ingredients, and the player to your left you influence by choosing the recipe from your hand that they are not allowed to pick. So you can also choose cards that you don't want to be attacked with, of course, because the recipes are what controls the attacking. So that's sort of the base premise. But there are no other ways of attacking. So that is why it has been popular with families as well, because there are no direct attacks like that. It's more like you're forced to attack the player to your right, and you're forced to take control of what recipes to send to the left, so that no one feels targeted. And I think that's a good way of
from that aspect.
Yes, and since the game forces you to do it, families families around the world has enjoyed it. I would say that. Because there are no direct attacks. I think that's a good sign in a family game in general, that you cannot attack, or you don't attack as much as a Risk and the more traditional games where you can gang up and someone is just out without. It doesn't really matter.
We trust me. In our family, we understand that. There are definitely games that we play that it ends in arguments about being picked on and do all that. For real, sometimes it's legit and sometimes it's just emotional. But definitely.
And it should be said that I like those kind of games too, but I think they're less suited for family games in general. I mean, the attack aspect is something you get used to after a while if you play a lot of games, I guess. But to and this game is more. I wouldn't say simple, but it's used for not. It's designed to not be as attacky in general. I have players that feel attacked still in these two playtesters, but in general, I don't think it's a big problem.
Very cool. So I'm looking forward to October, to next year, to get it and to play it and test it out. My question would be, and so you've got that game, and then you have a second game that's currently being looked at by companies to be able to go as well, collections. My question would be from if somebody's trying to develop games and do that, what would you recommend? Like what from both the development aspect of it first, and then of course, and if they want to, if they find that it works and they want to get it out there, what do you recommend?
Okay, those are two very good questions and kind of separate. So I will start with how to get started. Yep. And so first thing, what I recommend, and so the board game design community is not very big in many senses. I mean, at least not if you compare to the video games. They are so much bigger and so much more money in it in general. So first of all, I would share my ideas. I share with a lot of people and just say, hey, what do you think about this? Get some input, make a first prototype very early. So when you have an idea, it's easy to think about all the cool things that you want your prototype to do. But once you get it on the table, it just doesn't do that. So my first recommendation to a new designer would be get it on the table relatively fast to see what is working and what is not. And it could be that you could get those things that you wanted to do into the game, but typically you want to see it as players try to play your game rather than fantasize about how the game is going to be played. So get it onto the table early and share your ideas is how I have done it. And I know if you want to go into the general toy market, people are more secretive for sure. I'm talking about this segment of the hobby where you do, I mean, say Settlers of Catan, stuff like that. That has been shared among game designers and has been play tested. And that's the other thing then, which I should say. Once you have a prototype on the table and you have played it with your closest friend, bring it to other people that are interested in game design. That's the next step, I would say, because other game designers will not play your game as if it's finished. They will come with new solutions, new ideas of how to improve it. And then you take those ideas and you take the best ones and you merge them into your prototype. And then you play with game designers again for some time. Who knows how often you can do that? These are special times, by the way, with COVID-19. I have moved completely onto a digital system, and I've never been playtesting as much as I'm doing now, actually, because all of a sudden I can meet with friends that live all over Sweden and even over in Denmark and in the States even. I play with some. So, I mean, playing board games on a digital platform for playtesting purposes is not that bad. I'm a bit surprised. I thought it would be kind of bad, but so far I'm kind of impressed with the tools there. So I will mention Tabletop Simulator. It's a tool that you can download from Steam if you are interested to do that. And there are some game design communities that use that a lot. So you will find those on Facebook if you search a bit. I cannot give direct tips on that right now. So play test with game designers. So what have I said? Create the prototype, play it with closest friend, play with game designers, and then bring it to conventions. Unless you have a virus all over the town, then you play it on digital conventions. And play it with the players that are interested. Make print and play files that they can just print on the printer and play with their families or their closest friends, and get feedback. And then you reiterate. So it's a very iterative process. You have something, play it, come back, remake it, start over, and then go back and forth like that. And that will make you a game eventually. And once you have something where you go, yeah, this is a good game. Now it's a time where you could show it to publishers. If you want to do that, there are actually I would say there are two paths to take here. There are the self-publishing path, I guess a lot of people have heard of Kickstarter nowadays, and Kickstarters within board game community is very big. A lot of publishers are only using Kickstarter as a way of spreading their games. And that's a whole topic of its own that I'm not the right person to talk about because I haven't used that platform at all. But there are a lot of good resources where people share on how to make a good Kickstarter. But I'm not the person to talk about that.
Well, you had mentioned once as well about why you decided to go with the publishing company that you went with, was that instead of Kickstarter, that if you're going to do a Kickstarter, that really is a full-time job just in and of itself. So
Yes.
So you have to find the producers, you have to ship them, you have to do all from the start to finish to do the whole process. Versus if you go with a other company that actually does it, they do all the hard work, or the hard work as in the shipping and the printing and all that kind of stuff. And you can focus on the designing of the game and the play game of the game and the celebrity tour around the world and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, all the celebrity tours. Yes. Well, at least I get to focus on game design. Yes. And then, so that's the other path then. So if we have self-publishing and Kickstarter, it's actually showing it to publishers. And that's why I went to Spiel in Germany that I mentioned. So a lot of publishers, more or less, a lot of publishers. I wouldn't say all of them, but a lot of publishers, probably even a majority of all the publishers are at Spiel. So that's a good place to go, and Gen Con is probably the same. It's a good amount of publisher where you can show your game to several people at a short time. So, and I don't know if we have time, I can spend a bit time on how that is done as well. Should I?
Yeah, sure.
I do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So what I did, I reached out a few months in advance to a lot of publishers, maybe 30, 40 publishers, and about 30 of them showed some interest in my game. And the reason why I got that high positive feedback that they wanted to see me was that I spent quite a lot of time. I didn't send mails to all the publishers. I actually did some research on each and every one that I sent to and said, hey, you have a game that is about 15, 20 minutes. This game is a bit like that, but it has this difference. Would you be interested to talk to me? So that is the number one thing I would say. Show the publisher that you are interested in them. Because you are really, I mean, and you can't just spam everyone. That will, and since the board gaming community is that small, you will get probably a bad reputation if you do too. I mean, if you're just spamming everyone, they will go, yeah, did you get this? Yes, I did. Yeah, me too. So spend some time getting to know the publishers in the sense, not in getting to know the people, but getting to know what they're interested in and what they want to do. And once you know that, you reach out to them and show them that you know a bit what they're doing. I think that takes you a long way. And when you get feedback, I got, say, 25, 30 meetings at Spiel. So I prepared them with, well, what did I have? I had a sell sheet, which is basically a short one-page summary of the game. And so I had a short summary of the game. And the game, and I prepared a small example of how the game was played, and I could bring that up on a small table, and you're basically sitting on, say, 2-3 square meters in a small booth behind the scenes where they're selling all the games to all the gamers outside. You're sitting in these 2-3 square meters and showing the game to 1 or 2 people. In, say, you have 20 minutes, regardless of how big your game is. And so, I mean, in my case, it was kind of simple because we could basically play the game. Whereas if you want to make a game that is 1-2 hours, it's you need a short, snappy summary. So a sell sheet that shows them the main gameplay and then why they should be interested in the game.
Mm-hmm. So then so 30 of these, was it almost like a, I was gonna say Shark Tank or one of those TV shows where you come in and it's almost like you have different people. Have you seen those reality shows?
Yeah.
Where you come in and you're just pitching it, and then yeah, we'll think about, and then on to the next one. And I mean,
that's what I do. Yeah, I mean, so the bigger publishers have have say 4 or 5 parallel sessions like that all day long at Spiel. So they have separate rooms. The smaller publishers will take you backside of their booth and you show it to them. But I treated them all kind of the same, so it doesn't really matter. But yes, they basically have meetings booked from 9 in the morning to 9 in the evening, or 7, or whenever they're closing the convention. And they have these 30-minute slots or 20-minute slots where you go bam, 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 bam. And so they are pretty exhausted by the end of it. So it's even, I mean, it's even more important that you have something to put in their hands, like this commercial sell sheet that I'm saying. So here you go. And this is my contact. If you like this, remember this, and you give it to them. Ideally, I had 20 of these to give away to the publisher. And this is actually the game then. I mean, you have all the components and what have you. You don't see it, do you? I drop it. But a summary of the game, and ideally the game as well, to share to those that show the most interest. And then I was lucky enough to find a publisher, and that is, you need some luck, you need some preparation, and you need good friends that tell you who to talk to, and get to know people that knows the industry, basically.
Now you also, and I could be wrong, I'm not, but you won an award for it as well, didn't you? Or
yes.
Was that for that one?
Yes, that's for this one actually. Yes, so there was this game design competition that's in between getting a publisher, and so that is me still working on the game. I went to a game design competition in Denmark, and we were, I don't know if I can't remember now, is it 80 designs that were submitted to this or something like that, and about 20 of those were accepted to come on the show. Or the show, I wouldn't say show, it's a convention that is focused on game design and role-playing game scenarios. And it's a very special one, so I wouldn't be surprised. I almost dare to say that it's unique, because all the participants of that conventions are coming there to play these new games and these new role-playing game scenarios. And that is not something I see, at least not in Sweden. It could be that there are the protocol in the States, maybe something similar, but it's very nice as a designer, because everyone is very curious of what you have done. And I think I had more than 60, 80 people playing my game that weekend. And by the end of it, they had this almost like an Oscar gala. They really tried with the tuxedos and everything. And I wasn't aware that this thing existed. So I came there with my t-shirt and my jeans as always. And they brought me on stage, and I was completely taken by surprise, because there were some really good designers there. A lot of them actually, some even very well recognized, like the Fog of Love designer Jakob Bilo, and Kasper Lapp that made Magic Maze. That is another. So I came there with no expectation at all of being even in the finals, and I entered one of the 5 games that was in the finals, and I was so happy and pleased. And I have a picture of myself saying, "I can't sleep," on my Instagram account, and I'm just looking like this. And I was And then when I won and they brought me on stage, I don't know. I think I shared with you there in that clip. Did I in the end? I was almost brought to tears.
Your picture of you winning was probably my favorite picture of you, actually, is the reaction or video of you've just won the World Series, or the biggest sporting event of all time. I mean, it was a great, about as good as you can get from a. So
yeah, I was so surprised and so happy about that, I must say. And that community is
a little bit.
Now you broke up a bit, sorry.
Yep. No, that's all right. Broke up as well. I was going to say, I mean, those type of competitions as well. I mean, again, that goes back to, though I'm sure that helps with the selling of it. It's all about getting people to play your game, and those people at that particular convention were experts at games. I mean, they're some of the best that there is, and so having them have their feedback and be able to get through that, I mean, that definitely goes back to reiterates what you were saying before. It's like, have people play the game.
Yes.
You know, that's what in the game design merit badge I reference back all the time to what you said the first time you visited us. It's like play the game a lot, and then have other people play the game, and then have people play the game again after you've made the changes, and just play the game over and over again. And that's really what you definitely stressed when that first time you came and spoke to us. And that's what I continuously do.
Yes, so, and I think that's the best advice I can give. I think I've played my Whirling Witchcraft more than 300 times by now. So I mean, you really need to play it a lot to be able to know, and it's a simple game. So play your game a lot. Play it with different people. Play it with people with different background. Make sure that you're not offending someone because you're using some sort of religious item that is really precious to someone. Make sure you play it for all these different reasons, not only for game mechanic, but also in terms of being inclusive and all these things that matter so much. At least to me, I think is key.
Yeah, and Erik, that segues perfectly into the next part of it's going to be one of the conversations we want to talk to. Really, is about diversity and inclusion in the gaming community, and how that, and really, we've seen in the community in the world with Black Lives Matter and other movements in the past 2 months, how this is important, where representation is really important in those communities. We've seen a lot in the video gaming community as well about as not as opening as welcoming, and then I think in the game boarding community is a little bit different from the video game community. I'm glad you said that. I mean, talking about the segues and thinking about the importance of having the cultural aspect of it as well. And does that come up in conversation, or is that something that is you're consciously aware of as you're picking games, or when you play game, have you ever been playing a game and kind of went, yeah, that probably should not have ever been allowed to happen, or something like to that effect?
I mean, I would say board gaming. I'm not a video gamer. Actually, I don't play much. I play with my children every now and then. But I've heard horrific stories, and I think board game community is a bit better. But for sure, the Black Lives Matter movement is affecting the board game industry a lot right now, and I really think that things have to change, and I think they are changing. I sure hope so. And I see a lot of strong voices in the industry that talk a lot about this. One, Eric Lang is a designer that works for CMON, Cool Minis or Not, perhaps, something like that. He is a really strong advocate in these matters. I strongly recommend just following him to hear what's going on in this. He designed a lot of really big games. Blood Rage is one really big hit that was popular a few years ago, and a lot of different things that is really cool games. But he's also a strong advocate for the diversity movement. Emma Larkins is also an interesting designer to listen to in this matter. But I do think Emma Larkins has she is the one of the let's see now, she is in the podcast of let me double check that so I'm not saying that wrongly, but I think she is in Ludology right now. So Ludology is a good resource that I really like. It's a podcast that was started by Jeff Engelstein. Sorry about this. This was yes. So Emma Larkins, yes, she is one of the hosts in Ludology, and she's a strong advocate in this. Also, she's talking a lot in this podcast together with Jill Hova about game design in general. So that's another thing. I mean, listening to podcasts is probably the way I learn a lot about game design, and ludology has been one of those key things for me that I've been listening, going back and forth to work, and been listening to by night when I can't sleep and what have you. So ludology, the podcast, really nice.
I referenced, we've talked about before, one of your friends made the game The Curators, and though I haven't played it, which went on Kickstarter earlier this year at some point.
Yes.
I think, for example, the cover of the box for The Curators is a great example of inclusion, from a female archaeologist to a person in a wheelchair to a person of color, and so on, all represented on the board. I mean, sorry, on the cover of the box. So we really,
Yes.
I'm excited that was pushed out through Kickstarter this year. I'm really excited about that aspect, about making that when it comes out and being available to be played, to see if that continues throughout the whole game as well. So, but just the look
Yeah.
of it was fantastic.
So on that, I play tested a version, which is always the thing when I'm never playing finalized games nowadays. It's not true, but I play a lot of designers in works games, work in progress, and it's kind of an abstract game in some sense, but it's also, I mean, you're really trying to collect artifacts, making sure that you have a good museum.
Right.
But for sure, it's very, I mean, that is not by chance, of course, that this cover is focusing so much on diversity. And I think that artist did a good job. But it's also, actually, it's a hard, now I'm coming back to my own experience. I mean, I have this game about witches, and we had this idea of having different witches from all around the world. But also, on the other hand, we don't want to exploit religions of other cultures, for example. I mean, playing with religions is kind of a sensitive thing, right? So, I mean, it's really hard. I mean, we don't want to tokenism, or whatever you would call that. I mean, to just put something in there just because you want inclusivity.
Yeah.
On deep roots somehow. I mean, you don't want just to show it off, right? You really want to see, hey, this is for
Correct.
everyone. That's what we want to say, and that is a hard balance. And I'm still learning. I'm really trying, but it is for sure something that has been more and more present in the design discussions I've been involved in the past. Well, I guess the past 2-3 years or so. It has been coming, but the Black Lives Matter movement has accelerated as a whole. Are you still there, Darren?
All right. Yep, we're good. We had a slight delay on that aspect of it. So technology is a beautiful thing. The other one I would point out, I mean, so going on the diversity and inclusion aspect of it, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, the balance, it's difficult. The difference between diversity and inclusion, diversity, saying that you're doing it for that, and inclusion means that people feel welcome and they want to be a part of it. So, I think the ultimate game want for the gaming community and the scouts or organizations, that they're an inclusive organization where people come in and they feel welcome and they feel a part of it. And then the diversity is feedback from that. So diversity means that you're going to be able to see yourself in that particular one. Inclusive means that you feel welcome to that and being a part of that community. So it's interesting from games and from my personal thing, from scouts, we can say that somebody's welcome, but they have to make sure that they feel welcome there. And one way to do that is that they can see themselves in the games and see themselves in those particular ones. It's kind of interesting.
Yes, and for a long time, so I mean, for a long time, a lot of games were about colonialism. So I mean, Europe going out into the world and taking over different places. Even the very popular game Catan was called Settlers in the beginning, and it has been renamed just because of this aspect. And I guess that's almost a bit problematic, I would say. I mean, because where do you have these empty lands that you just enter? I mean, it's basically removing the problem that arises when new people come to a place and just start to settle in, right? I don't have a straight cut solution to that, but I think at least they're trying to get rid of the whole idea of settlers as being unproblematic. But I don't know. I don't have a straight cut answer to how to solve that.
I guess I didn't realize they changed the name for that. Because when I talk about settlers, I always call it settlers, and everybody, and then now I'm sorry, settlers of Canton, and they're like, "You mean just Canton?" I'm like, "No, settlers of Canton." I'm like, I do the whole. I didn't realize because my version of it's an old version of it. 18 years ago or whenever that was when we were in London from that time frame. So interesting. I don't think I realized that. You know, there's other ones. I mean, there's a game called Freedom. It's about the underground world. And you know,
Yes.
I was watching the Our Family Plays Games blog, and they were talking about this game specifically. You know, they're that's an African American family that plays a lot of board games, and they were like, "This is not a board game that we want to play." I mean, slavery is not a piece of part of the. It's not a game. Like we understand that maybe teachers use it for educational purposes and all that kind of stuff, but that particular one is not one that you'll ever see in their collection. Is what they said. And so I think there's a balancing act as well. So whether or not you should do it or not, you know, it's a tough. Sometimes can be a tough conversation or tough decision from that.
Yes, and that particular game, I hear good things about in this, though, that it's not trying to hide the actual the problems that were faced. I mean, so there is no, yeah, and I should probably not. I haven't played the game, so I shouldn't say too much. But I do hear that people are getting good conversations about actual historical events, right? And I think we're getting closer. I think board games are getting closer to actually be more like movies every now and then. I mean, we actually can discuss more problematic things than just playing them for the fun of it. And this could be such a game.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure because I haven't played it. But for sure, I think there is space in the board game world to actually address more serious matters than just here's a laugh, great fun. And I look forward to where board games will be in 10 years, because I think we will see more serious matters as movies has done for 50 years by now, right? It's still a young medium somehow.
Well, absolutely. I mean, yep. Well, and going for what you said as well, Eric. I mean, think about games like Wingspan is a great example. I mean, that is a board game about birds. That is, I mean, you're literally learning about birds and their habits and all. It's a phenomenal. That's one that, from a replay value, our family plays on a regular basis, continuously plays it. And the other one we started playing, same philosophy, is photosynthesis. We played that several times as well. It's the same. You know, there's an educational
Which one?
Photosynthesis.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, cool.
You're growing. You're growing a forest, and it's and that one has a ton of strategy in there. It's a fun game, and we play that multiple times. But you're at the same time you're having fun enjoying it, but you're learning at the same time from an educational aspect of it. More for Wingspan than for photosynthesis. But you know, I think those type of games where that's developing, I think you're absolutely right. From that, I mean, they're games have come a long way since Clue or Scrabble or whatever. That's for sure.
I think so, and there are still benefits to those games. I will not say anything else, but for sure things have evolved a lot. And actually, when you say Wingspan, I probably should. Elizabeth Hargrave, the designer of that game, she's also very vocal on the matters of diversity. So she's a good example of that too. So worthwhile to follow on Twitter or where have you, where she also talks about this matter a lot.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time. I know you're on vacation. I don't want to take too much of your time away from the family, but I kind of want to finish up with two different things. One is if you have a couple recommendations on games, so new or something exciting that I know that I like how you say as well. Your recommendations are going to change to what kind of mood you're in, what you're into playing at the moment. So One day it may be one thing, it may be something different. And then still in the frame that our family plays games is the shelf of shame. Is there anything you have on your shelf that you absolutely think you should play that you haven't played since you purchased it? It's just been sitting there causing a little heartache. So what do you got for us?
Yeah. Okay. So I will start with my game that is on my shelf of shame then, that I bought on Kickstarter, but I haven't even. I mean, I've opened it but I haven't played it. There you go. I think this is pronounced Gentis. It's an early civilization game that I really look forward to the mechanics. I'm really interested as a designer, but also as a gamer. So I think that looks absolutely fantastic. It's definitely on the heavier side. So, and I'm not sure if I want to recommend it because I haven't played it, but I've seen good things about it. And so that's one of the games on my shelf, my shame shelf, if you want to. I don't want to take up all of them because there are a few. Then if it comes to recommendations, as you say, I play games with a lot of different people and in different occasions. But I do like really short games. I mean, I designed one myself just because of that. And I think one game that I really recommend is called Ink and Gold or Diamonds. It's the same game almost. There are some small varieties in it. That is designed by the same person that made Ticket to Ride, actually, Alan R. Moon. I'm pretty sure. Really nice, short, 20 minutes. It has this push your luck element in it, which means you can try to grab some more to win, or you can bail out and just play safe. And you can, if you're behind, you're forced to push and push and push. And if you push it too much, you eventually lose everything that you collected this round. Really short, simple rules. You learn it in, I mean, if someone has read the rules, you can teach the rules in 10 minutes or so, 5 minutes perhaps. So really nice, family friendly. I also like, in terms of family games, I would recommend, it's an old game, but still, it's Werewolf. I think the Americans talk about this as Mafia every now and then, and I think it's even kind of common in the Scouts to play it. Is that true?
Yep.
Yeah.
The Mafia game.
And that has the Mafia game. Yeah, and that has been formalized and is being. There are several different versions. I've only played the original one from the 90s. It's called Werewolf von Düsterwald. Probably something else in English, but I really enjoyed that social aspect of it. And I mean, it's a completely different game because it's so social. Somewhere in between there, you have the game called The Resistance or Avalon, which is a social deduction game, also very short and really enjoyable in bigger groups. All of these games that I now mentioned are for bigger groups. So, I mean, if you are 4 to 8 people, perhaps something like that. Then, I mean, then when I meet the friends that really, really like the heavier games, yeah, what should I say? I have sincerely enjoyed the game called Barrage that I bought on Spiel last year and played quite a few times by now. It's all about hydropower. So you're building dams in southern France. Hydropower. So
the game
building water dams. Oh, Barrage.
Barrage. Okay.
And Barrage is it's competitive. It's kind of tough to learn, and I'm not selling it in now, am I? But it's also a fantastic experience to play. I mean, it is a lot of interaction. It has a lot of thinking, and it's just I'm amazed how much game you have in that one. I mean, I played it say 5-6 times, which is a lot for me. It's just something that I mean I move on and I want to see what is going on in the game design world in general. So, but I really enjoy that one. I cannot tell you who produced that one from the top of my head now, but it's one of the heavier games that I've enjoyed a lot lately. Also, I have the other day, I hope that that is being picked up by publisher. I played a game but that a few friends made that I really enjoyed, which is a dexterity game, and that's another whole other branch that we haven't even talked about, and we're running out of time. But it's I mean, where you actually flick things on the table, right? I mean, you say what there is. So there are race games where you flick the cars with your hand like that, right? You just go,
Yep.
and the car is running away. And it's a game called Pitch Car that I also recommend, but it's also on the lighter side. But these friends, Uptime Games, they create a dexterity game with area control. So it has strategic aspect and this dexterity aspect. I really like it. I hope they will reach a publisher because it hasn't been published yet. So I'm just teasing you, hoping that you will encourage them to move on.
That's very cool. Cool. I've written down 2 or 3 that I'm sure I'm gonna be ordering in the next couple of days to be able to add to our collection. Sure.
Great. And I do think that even though that you, Darrin, own it, I mean, Wingspan is fantastic. I think it has a great theme. The whole it just serves different kind of gamers, I would say, that don't want the conflict and the war and what have you. Wingspan is all about building this, what do you call it? The place for birds, aviary? No, what do you call
it? Yep. Perfect.
Yeah.
Aviators.
Yeah, and you want to build this and make as many birds as possible feel welcome to your aviary. Yeah. So I really like that. I think it's a fantastic theme and a really good use of a lot of good mechanisms. I think it's stunning. It looks great.
Art is phenomenal. Like, it is a beautiful game. I mean, it's just perfect ones.
Yes.
All right. Well, Erik, thank you very much for joining us today. I'll share as soon as it's up and posted. I'll share it with you. And so again, everybody. So I'm Darrin, and our guest today has been Erik Andersson Sundén from Uppsala, Sweden, with his talking about the game development process. Thank you very much, Erik.